Heart-centered metaphysics is essentially Unity's philosophy. It's written by a friend of mine, Paul Hasselbeck, who has essentially taken Charles Fillmore's writings, and Charles Fillmore was one of the co-founders, he and his wife Myrtle, and Myrtle was more the heart, and Charles was more the preacher, and so she did a lot of praying with people, and he did a lot of writing and talking. Metaphysics in general is a world philosophy that we in the Unity movement have taken kind of as a baseline to explore our own spiritual nature through. And it's not something you have to take as fact. It's something that would serve you, I think, to explore and to decide, does this work for me? And this is essentially the same idea that Unity starts with, which is to say that at the realm of God, there are divine ideas, and in those divine ideas are the perfect aspect of those. There's perfect peace, love, grace, intelligence, wisdom, power. Whatever you can express at the highest level, that's there. So let's say beauty is one of them. And everything you see in the physical world that is beautiful to you is essentially a step down of that, not it itself, but it is an expression of it. And one of the other things that happens is that there's an ideal of humanity. There's a Christ ideal of humanity, and we are essentially expressions of it. And that we have evolved to the level at which we can be consciously choosing what we express. And that becomes the gateway for allowing more of these divine ideas through or less. And metaphysics, then, is how we open ourselves, how we become aware of the divine ideals, the divine itself, and bring it into actualizations in this life. And therefore, Unity called itself practical Christianity, because it used the ideal of Jesus as the great example, not the great exception. Jesus is the great example of how to be fully expressing the divine in this lifetime. And he does it by recognizing his oneness with all that is, with the presence, with the divine, with God. And it uses the Christian Bible in a little bit of a twist, because it takes the Bible and it says, see, really what it was talking about, which was a little hidden to most people, is that this Bible is about you. It's not about history so much. And so whatever the story in there is an instructive story about what happens in consciousness, not so much what happened in fact, not so much historical. Perhaps it's historical, perhaps it's allegorical, perhaps it's true in the way that we normally think of the newspaper true, but it's always true about you, because it is exploring consciousness itself. That distinction freed them to use the Christian Bible in a very Platonic and or Eastern way of thinking. And it took it out of the exceptional way that we perceive Jesus as being the one and only Son, and made that a universal experience. And you become the expression of God with the same potential that Jesus had to do it very, very well. And metaphysics is the study in Unity of how to do that. We're opening our consciousness to the divine, and as we open it, more of it flows out into your world. And on the divine there is peace, and there is love, and there is grace, and there's all the beauty in the world, all the power, all the abundance, everything that is of value here on this plane resides in its perfection on that plane. And as we attune ourselves to that plane, we open the valve that allows it to come through. And you take the divine potential that's in this upper chamber, and through your consciousness of paying attention to it and opening and vibrating essentially at that level, you make it possible for it to be more manifest in the world of existence at the physical level. So both recognition, but also creation. And we become the conduits of divine ideas to the level at which we bring our attention and our awareness to it, and the level at which we are willing to be that. One more state, which is verity consciousness, in which you recognize at this point you and that are the same. There's only one, and I'm it, with it, and all that is, which is just one presence. This verity consciousness is where we're headed with the whole of the unity experience, is to come to this place where we recognize we are the one, and the one is us. And the one is everybody else, not like we're keeping it to ourselves, but it is the state of oneness with the divine. And it's a bit of a distance from sense consciousness, where everything is happening to you and everything's just from the senses, to moving to a state of awareness where you consciously recognize at the level of the mind and at the level of consciousness who you really are.